On It's Supernatural, gold teeth appearing out of thin air, bread from heaven appearing in Bibles, people being raised from the dead. See college kids whose idea of weekend fun is bringing miracles to total strangers. This isn't your old-time religion. It's supernatural.
Do angels exist? Are healing miracles real? Is there life after death? Can people get supernatural help from another dimension? Has the future been written in advance? Sid Roth has spent 25 years researching the strange world of the supernatural. Join Sid on this edition of It's Supernatural.
Hello, Sid Roth here. Welcome to my world, where it's naturally supernatural. My guest, Darren Wilson, is a college professor. What happens when a nice evangelical Christian that's a college professor, an angel comes to him, tells him, I want you to do a film on miracles? He doesn't even believe in miracles. He's never done a film before. Oh, and by the way, he doesn't have any money. Let's take a look at the introduction to this film, The Finger of God.
So, what was the miracle that happened to you?
God gave us gold teeth.
Hold on. Did you hear that?
God gave us gold teeth.
I should probably stop it here and explain a few things. You're probably wondering who these people are. Well, I can assure you they aren't crazy. In fact, that's Aunt Patsy, and that's Uncle Bob. Now, I'm not the type of person who just believes everything he hears, but when your own family, who you've known your whole life and you know is on the up and up, tells you that, well, this happened to them in church, let's just say it makes you start to question a few things. So I began to wonder, well, if God put gold teeth in somebody's mouth, what else was he up to? I decided to travel the world to find out. And let me tell you, if you think this is weird, it's about to get a whole lot weirder. Everyone, no matter who you are or what you believe, has a kind of grid of understanding. Usually this grid is based on your experience or upbringing. My grid was pretty simple. God can do miracles if he wants to, but I never saw any, so, they must be pretty rare. God was kind of like an invisible friend whose greatest hits happened a long time ago. Back then, people needed raw displays of power because their theology wasn't as, sophisticated as ours is now. There was one thing that I was pretty sure of. No matter what God did, he was very, very normal. And he always made perfect sense. Being new to all this miracle stuff, I figured the best place to start would be the one place that I knew best: church. So I started taking my camera to churches where I heard God was doing some, interesting things. I was already willing to accept the whole gold teeth thing because of my aunt and uncle, even though I still thought it was really stinking weird. But apparently, God wanted to make sure I got the point.
Yes, my teeth have been in a kind of a disastrous situation. The dentists are so expensive, and I'm a senior, and I really needed some dental work, and he did it for me.
Wow, hallelujah. Let me see that flashlight. He's got a flashlight. Let me see your flashlight real quick. Look at this. If you can see it, let's see. On the bottom, look at that.
It didn't take long for me to realize that gold teeth were just the tip of the iceberg. But even though so many people were getting these things, I couldn't shake that nagging question of why. Why teeth? Why would a God who's so normal do something so abnormal?
Hello, Sid Roth here with Professor Darren Wilson. Darren, where are you professor at?
Judson University, just outside Chicago.
And if anyone outside of your aunt and uncle had gotten gold teeth, what do you think you would have said if you were just an observer?
Probably that they're either lying, they're misinformed.
So maybe your aunt and uncle are lying and misinformed.
Maybe, but I highly doubt it.
What are some of the stranger things that you observed as you went on your odyssey of the supernatural?
Yeah, well, the stuff that I experienced in the beginning, what you just saw with the gold teeth, gold dust appearing, manna appearing.
Manna is like the manna they ate in the desert in the 40 years in the desert. It looks a little like matzah. Yeah,
yeah. I got to eat that twice. That was pretty cool. But and then the gemstones especially were very odd. But that's how it all started. And then as I moved out from that arena and around the world, I started seeing people like literally being healed in front of my eyes. And that, to me, that's when it got really, really interesting. So.
Tell you what, you think this is interesting. Watch what happens when this unassuming, not experienced in the supernatural, college professor who never did a picture, a video in his life. I mean, it wasn't your goal to do videos as far as putting them together?
No. I mean, I went to film school, but I went to film school as a writer. I never had any interest whatsoever to pick up a camera.
So an angel had to tell him to do this. Don't go away. We'll be right back after this word.
We'll be right back to It's Supernatural. We now return to It's Supernatural.
Hello, Sid Roth here with Darren Wilson. What happens with this unassuming college professor that's never done a film in his life? He is skeptical. That's almost an understatement of the supernatural, is commissioned by an angel to do a film on miracles around the world. Darren, I understand you were coerced by your father and your wife to go to a church in Canada. What was going on there?
Yeah, well, first of all, I have to point out that the Lord had actually given me the idea for this movie about 4 or 5 months before, and I didn't want anything to do with it.
Why?
Well, because one, I didn't have any money. 2, I didn't have any contacts. And 3, I didn't want to make an explicitly Christian movie. I always thought they were a little cheesy and a little inauthentic, so to speak. And I didn't really want to become a part of that. And so I ran from it. And in May of 2006, my father and my wife kind of bribed me, I guess you could say, to go to this church. It was they're having a big conference. And so I went to basically to make my wife, happy. And so we're there, and I was very, very judgmental of what was going on and all of the people. It was a very charismatic kind of thing, and people are whooping and hollering and doing their little shimmy shakes, whatever you want to call it, and just being very kind of wild and exuberant, let's put it that way. And I remember it was the last night of the conference, and I was kind of standing in the back, and it was right in the middle of worship, and one of the speakers got up on stage and just kind of announced that an angel had just entered the room, and his name was Breakthrough, and he'd just come here from Nigeria or something like that.
Did you believe him?
No. And he's here with all of his angel buddies, and they're just going to come and just minister to us and just keep worshiping the Lord. And so I'm sitting in the back thinking, yeah, right, okay, so apparently there's an angel in the room now, and this guy happens to know his name and knows where he's been for the last 10 years, so on and so forth. So I'm in the back, trying to worship, thinking all these unholy thoughts, and I've got my eyes closed like every good evangelical should. And as my eyes are closed, I see this thing pass in front of my eyes. You know, sometimes your eyes are closed, but you can tell that somebody just walked in front of you. And I opened my eyes real quickly, just kind of out of reflex, and there's nothing there. And I close them, and the figure is right here, still standing there. And I have my eyes closed, but I can see this like outline. And this is very strange to me. I've never had anything like this happen to me before. And then the figure turns, and he walks up to me. And he's standing. I can see the outline, like where he's looking at me face to face. And he's literally the most intense individual I've ever met in my life. I mean, just...
Are you seeing shadows, or are you actually seeing a clear being?
It's shadow. It's like a shadow of an outline. And he was just crackling with intensity. Kind of, I kind of describe it like a drill sergeant on steroids, you know, just really just, you know, fired up. And he speaks to me, and I heard it was just rang in my ears when he spoke to me. And he says, "Are you ready?" And I had no idea what he's talking about. But I know enough, because I grew up in the church, I know enough that when an angel asks you a question, you just say yes. And so I said yes. And he says again, he's like, "Are you ready?" And I said yes. And he says a third time. This time I could see his hands reach up for my head, so I know he's like grabbing my head. I couldn't feel anything. And he screams in my face, "Are you ready?" And I finally said, "Yes." Ready for what? I don't know what he's talking about. And he stops and he stares at me again. He's just so intense. And he says, "Make that movie." And he starts to move away. And I just thought in my head, I thought, wait, because this is probably the coolest thing that's ever happened to me. And so as soon as I think it, he's back in front of me. But this time he's not intense anymore. He's literally the most gentle and loving individual that I've ever encountered. Just oozing love. And at this point, there's no doubt that I'm speaking with breakthrough. This is not a question.
That's the name of the angel.
That's the name of this angel, yeah. And so he says to me, and I can see his hand kind of reaching for mine. And this time he speaks very softly, and he says, "What do you want? What do you need? I'll stay with you all night if you need me to." And I didn't need anything.
How would you like an angel to walk up to you and say, "What do you want? What do you need? And I'll be here as long as you need my help"? I mean, give me a break. So what'd you do?
Well, I blubbered and I didn't need anything. I just didn't want the experience to end. And I realized he wasn't leaving. And I realized he's waiting for me to release him. And so I said, "Okay, well, you can go now." And then he drifted off. And the rest of my family got touched immediately after that, went their own way. So I came out of him white as a ghost. My family looks at me like, "What happened to you?" And I said, "I got to go be alone because something just happened to me." And so I went up to the little balcony that they had there, and I sat down, and I started to pray, and it was like the Lord just, he overcame me with his love. And it's the first time I've ever truly felt the true weight of his love for me. And I was a puddle on the floor. And so and I heard clearly, he said, "Stand up." So I stood up and I walked to the edge of the balcony. I looked down at all these people that a half an hour before I was judging mercilessly. And they're still doing their shimmy shakes. They're still doing their hooping and hollering. But this time I saw them through the Father's eyes, and I saw the brokenness and I saw the hurt that's in them. And I heard the Lord say very clearly, he's like, "Will you make it for them?" And at that point, I said yes.
You're going to find out about dead people that came to life. You're going to find out about students that on a Friday night for fun, they go to the hospital, the emergency ward, just to pray for the sick. And guess what? They get better. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
We'll be right back to It's Supernatural. We now return to It's Supernatural.
Hello, Sid Roth here with Darren Wilson. So Darren, you're commissioned by this angel. God's been speaking to you to do this film on miracles around the world. How much money did you have for your budget?
Well, I started with nothing. And
so did you do a big fundraising project?
Sort of. I made a deal with the Lord in the very beginning, because again, I didn't want to make it. So I made a deal with God. I said, "I'll make this movie for you, but I don't want to have to ask anybody for money, because I hate asking people for money." And So I said, if you can do that, if you can give me the money, I'll go make it. And never asked for a dime, and he gave me $25,000.
Where'd this trip take you?
Took me all over the United States, into Canada. We went to Africa in Mozambique, Bulgaria, Turkey, France, Switzerland, all over the place.
Never in a million years did you think you'd be putting a video together on the supernatural. Tell me a bit about that dead man. What was his name? Francis?
Francis, yeah.
Tell me about dead Francis.
Well, I had heard of Francis just because when I was scheduled to go to Mozambique to visit with Heidi and Roland Baker, I had heard that there was this guy who has this incredible story, even for them. And so I asked, well, could I talk to him? And so he came to the airport at Johannesburg during my layover. And that's when I heard his full story, which was just mind-boggling. What had happened is it was about 2 years before they were having a church service. And he was outside kind of, ushering people in, and he was going to go lock up the gate, and these four men came up to him. And they were all drunk, and so he, was trying to figure out what they wanted. And they started to beat on him, to beat him up. They had baseball bats. And he said, what are you doing? And they said, well, we're going to kill you today. Today's your last day. And so they beat him to death with baseball bats. They stabbed him 27 times.
So he was dead.
He was dead as a doornail. All right? So they took him to the hospital. Hospital pronounced him dead. The whole church comes together, and they don't know what else to do, so they're just praying for him. And he was killed at around 11 o'clock at night, around 12:15, 12:30 in the morning. He came back to life. But when he came back to life, he was a total mess. I mean, he'd been beaten by baseball bats and stabbed 27 times. His face was all swollen. He couldn't speak. And right before they put him out for the night, they gave him morphine. Right before they put him out for the night, he just was able to croak out and whisper, "Forgive them," referring to the people who did this to him. And then, he was out. And this got back to the church. And that morning, the police in South Africa caught one of these guys. And they're very proud of themselves because they don't normally catch these guys. And so they went into the church, and they called the church and said, hey, we caught one of the men who beat your friend to death. Come down, sign some papers, press charges. We'll get it processed. And the church knew that Francis said forgive them. So they said no. We're not gonna press charges. We want to forgive him. And the police were a little upset. It's not really the best way to handle crime in South Africa. And so he said, no, you really need to come down. And the church with one voice said, absolutely not. We forgive him. And the moment they forgave him as a body, Francis was instantly healed in the hospital. All of his bruises, all of his cuts, everything was gone immediately.
Now you actually met Francis and videoed him?
Yes. He still has his bloody shirt with 27 knife wounds in it.
And now what did this do for your grid of the supernatural?
It just took it to a whole new level. I mean, you hear, it's one thing to hear stories, it's another thing to look across into the eyes of someone who has had an experience like this, and that this person isn't lying to you.
Tell me about those college students in California that, for fun, they go to the emergency room at the hospital. Is that true?
Yeah. In Redding, California, there's a church out there, and they have a school, I guess you call it a school of ministry, and they basically, kids go there. They're probably aged between 18 to 25 mostly, and they go to just learn how to operate in the supernatural and learn how to just, they hit the streets and they go look for anybody that they can to pray for. And one of the things they'll do is they'll go to the ER on Friday nights for fun, and they'll look for somebody who's sick, and they'll pray for them before the doctor sees them, get them healed.
You know what I'm wondering? I know the effect that your film had on me, and I'm pretty excited to make this available to you. But what I want to find out from Darren is, when he plays this for his own evangelical church that were like him, he believes God can do miracles, but they'd never seen any, what effect did this have on them?
Well, it had the same effect that it's having on literally every public showing that I've heard of, it has the same effect. God shows up in a major, major way.
Describe what happened.
Okay, what happens? People are being healed while watching the movie, but most of the healings and the things that are taking place after the movie's over, and the faith level is kind of at a high pitch, and so the people will just turn for each other and they'll start to pray for one another. And so we've had healings, we've had salvations, we've had people being set free from depression, from oppression, from addictions. It's just absolutely...
You know, the footage that you had from this underground church in China, I have never seen such glory of God on their faces.
Yeah.
What effect did it have when you went through that footage?
Well, yeah, that's the one place I didn't go to get the footage. A missionary named Dennis Balcom gave me that footage. He'd been a missionary in China for 40 years. And when I took a look at it, I was sitting on something that was absolutely incredible. I mean, it's literally the rarest footage on the planet. It's culled from years and years of traveling around deep into the heart of that underground church, and what it did to me, it showed me for the first time what real, genuine, I mean, heartfelt, genuine faith really looks like, and it brought me to tears, and it's everybody. What I hear is it's everybody's favorite part of the movie, is because when they see that and they see what these people are going through and how they react to it, it's absolutely incredible.
You know what? I think next week I want to show a portion of that. Because it's the real thing. I mean, Darren, can you put it in any other words than it's seeing the real thing? Yeah. What happens when a human being sells out 100% and is filled with the presence of God? Are they having many miracles there?
Oh, it's an everyday common occurrence. It's one of the things that's causing the great kind of groundswell of conversions, is the miracles that are preceding the preaching.
When you went to Mozambique, are many people that are dead raised from the dead there?
Yeah, the ministry that I went with was Iris Ministries, and they've had over 80 people raised from the dead in the last few years.
And by the way, I know as a fact that if someone is dead just for a few minutes or something, they don't even count them. They have certain strict requirements. Everything you've ever read in the Bible, I can't say enough good things about this video. I wish that every young person, every older person in the world would see this video. Darren, one funny thing that happened real quick.
Funny thing that happened?
Yeah,
oh, boy.
In filming it.
Funny thing that happened.
I can tell you a funny thing that happened. When you came to interview me on this video, and I had words of knowledge,
yes.
And what thoughts went inside of your mind?
Yeah, I was interviewing you. We're in this little office space, and all of a sudden, and this is a good, solid year before I'm even going to start editing the movie, and so you start getting these words of knowledge for people who are going to be watching this as yet unmade movie.
That are going to be physically healed.
Physically healed. And it was, I remember the hair standing up in the back of my head when you did it, because it was just a really, really powerful moment. But at the same time, I'm like, well, I guess I'm going to finish this movie. And I guess people are going to watch it because, this was happening. I knew it was very real. And since then, it was actually the first word I think you had was for headaches. And that was the first miracle that happened when I showed it.
But I want a miracle to happen with you right now. I want you to know God. I don't care about your religion. I care about you knowing God. And there's no other name given unto men in which we can be cleansed of our sin and righteous to have intimacy with God.